of Omar Khayyam as explained by Paramahansa Yogananda. Today's reading is quatrain 54. So let me set this up just a moment. I'm going to play Swami Kriyananda's singing of the quatrain and Yogananda's paraphrase. But just before the paraphrase, he writes in the book, "It would be helpful for a clear understanding of this stanza, especially to refer to the keys to meaning at the end." So we're going to listen to the quatrain sung and the paraphrase, Yogananda's paraphrase, and then I will read those keys to meaning to you as well. So let me begin.
Stanza 54. I tell thee this when starting from the goal, over the shoulders of the flaming foe of heaven, far wind and Mushtari they flame, in my predestined plot of dust and soul. Paraphrase. In a cosmic vision, I beheld how all beings, including myself, first emerged from the blazing furnace of cosmic energy. I perceived how God, according to his perfect plan, gave us perishable bodies, but imperishable souls. How he made the prototype of our human bodies and stamped our souls with his imperial image of perfection. Having created us in his image, he also gave us intelligence and the free choice to identify ourselves with either the body or the soul. The body is as we have chosen it to be, a pleasure palace or a temple of the universal spirit. The choice is ours, and it marks the extent of our free will. God placed us on this cosmic stage with the promise that if we spurned the delusive pleasures of the senses and concentrated our attention on finer soul perceptions, we should return to him and live with him in joy for all eternity.
So I can fully understand why Swami Kriyananda, Swamiji as we call him, suggested that we go to the keys for me of meaning. And I have to confess, the words here are really a mystery until he unlocks them. Let me read the keys of meaning. Starting from the goal means emanating from God, who is the end and also the origin of creation. Life from its beginning in God is its conclusion, to its conclusion in him, forms a vast circle. The soul ultimately has but one destiny, to complete its own cycle of existence. Over the shoulders of the flaming foal of heaven means riding the stallion of fiery cosmic energy, Pegasus, the winged horse. Pegasus is a constellation in the northern sky below Pleiades and close to the vernal equinoctial point. Omar, apart from being a noted mathematician, was also the astronomer royal in the court of Sultan Malik Shah. Who would know that, right? Parwin and Mushtari means Parman refers to our divine center, Mushtari the focus of our spiritual power. Parwan is the Persian name for Pleiades. Mushtari, the name for Jupiter. Pleiades contains the star Alcyone, which certain ancients considered the center and pivot of the universe. The fact of its placement above Pegasus, the flaming foal, is offered as a reminder that cosmic energy is centered in God, and that human energy, too, should be focused in God. Since ancient times, astrologers have considered Jupiter the planet of spiritual development and insight. They flung means, though human, I was given the divine power symbolized by the stellar placements to overcome my mortal limitations. In my predestined plot means the heavenly reality here referred to lies within ourselves. The outer placements are symbolic. Mankind was not afflicted with self-created karmic limitations, but was predestined by God eventually to reclaim his divine nature. Dust and soul means man, the creature, is mere dust, subject to limitations placed upon him by outward nature. As the soul, however, he is beyond all limitations. In essence, he is forever the creator, unconfined in an eternity of freedom. So I hope you can see, as I see, that these keys to meaning, these phrases in this particular quatrain, are almost impossible to understand without research and context, and in this case, without Yogananda's explanations of them, because he didn't research, he didn't think in terms of context, Yogananda. He intuited. He read this poem, he heard this poem, this great Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and he understood it intuitively from the beginning. The explanations are written there for us to be able to get a glimmer of the intuitive understanding that he had. And even the explanations need to be read intuitively. And so, what this quatrain is saying to us, at least to my understanding, is that God has given us free will, but that freedom only extends as far as we can opt to think and act in such a way that it is God reminding for us, brings us closer to God, or that takes us away from God. Put another way, since the beginning of time, our time, this soul's time, for eons, as far as we know. It's certainly what Yogananda explains. Since that time, we have chosen and opted for more things that take us down the spine into the lower chakras of our consciousness or awareness, rather than up the spine into the higher realms of our higher chakras or awareness. And so, we take one step forward and a couple of steps back, and one step forward and a couple of steps back, and things tend to cancel each other out within our being. We think of it in terms of good or bad, but it really isn't that. It's just choosing to align ourselves with our soul and divine reality, or to align ourselves with material consciousness, those things that, putting happiness outside of ourselves, not being aware that these bodies are merely a material reality. The soul, the ego is the soul identified with that body. We have the body, but we don't have to identify with that body. We see material realities, seeming realities around us. We know now from science that that's not the actual reality. But even if we're thinking that maybe it is, it just simply takes us into defining things by those realities. So often we define things by what other people want us to be doing, want us to be thinking. All of those things in our environment that pull us out into the seeming reality around us. And so this quatrain is to remind us that we have those choices. We've had them since the beginning of time. So let's choose to live in higher awareness. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that we have to be able to keep our hearts and mind focused on God. It can be, because that can be a little bit abstract unless we think in terms of focusing on, say, the Guru. And for Christians in the West, that would be Christ. For myself, it would be Yogananda. But it means being aware of the attributes even of God, being aware of kindness, of joy, of love, of energy, of light, of the music of the spheres, the sound of Om. There are so many ways to lift the energy in our spine into higher awareness. And I want to close just with the thought that one of the most enjoyable parts for me of the Bhagavad Gita is when Krishna talks about the fact that even acting in kindness raises the energy in our spine. So it isn't only in meditation, it's also in action, in selfless service, in kindness, in all those qualities that are more the qualities of divine consciousness. Our energy in the spine is automatically lifted. So let's keep our hearts and mind focused on the highest as we enter this week further, the week